Right. I'm going to talk in general about the film. I've not really discussed this at any length, mainly because the film was coming out. It is now out, so I feel it's easier to talk about. So, just a little bit of background. The first project, I went from £300 to £365 in about 6.5 months. And obviously, I was on cycle for that period of time. Now, at the end of it, well, to be honest, for the last 6 weeks or more, I'd been on 2-1. But otherwise, up to that point, training had been continually productive and continually improving. And then at that point, I was just stagnating, picking up niggles, starting to get a lot of injuries in my legs as well. But there was other reasons behind that. Now, with regards to my legs, a long time ago, I was crushed. I got crushed under a full-size Chevy. Landed on top of me. Result of that was, when I've eventually recovered, that my glutes and my lower ab wall didn't work correctly. As a result, my quads developed in power, and there was a massive muscular imbalance between my quads and my glutes. And my core was basically supported by my lower back and my psoas. I was aware of the problem and started to make inroads into trying to correct it. So I was trying to force glute activation, but I started way too heavy. Don't get me wrong, the weights were light, what I was used to using. Excuse me. Got a bit there, tickle throat. But they were nowhere near light enough to ensure proper corrective engagement. As a result, instead of the load going into my glutes, the load went into my spinal erectors. This resulted in my spinal erectors spasming. This meant that the load was then fully supported by my psoas, and my psoas went into stress and crushed my femoral nerve. Now, before this actually happened, I'd cruised. Now, when I came off after the CC1, PCT'd and everything was fine, back up firing, but I was dropping size rapidly, and I decided that it would be healthier long term to stay on low dose to maintain size than it would be to drop size and try and regain it in the next cycle. So I ended up going back on a 400 meg a week, which is not a cruise at all. It's a bloody cycle, to be honest, and it was too high. I'd never cruised before, so I didn't really know what I needed to do and where I needed to be to maintain my size. It was all new territory to me. Anyway, training had improved again, niggles were all clearing up, and obviously I was working on rehabbing this glute situation and felt I was making progress until I got the spasm. Now, as I got the spasm, I'd just started to take my doses up to my planned doses for the cycle. It was bad. It had put me in hospital for 3 days, but I felt that it wasn't going to be for long. So I left the doses alone another week, and to be fair, I was starting to train within a week, but what I didn't know is that my back wasn't working at all now, and I started to get pains down my legs all the time, and this was the slow crushing of my femoral nerve. At its worst, I was wheelchair bound. So I kept thinking, oh, another week. Weeks turned into months, and before I realised it, I had been at higher doses for 6 weeks or so. So I dropped the doses down, came back down to a cruise, thinking it would soon be fixed. Well, this dragged on and on and on. I slowly did improve, and though I didn't have full functionality and I wasn't fully mobile or anything working, I could train quite effectively. It just meant using certain machines and avoiding some of the compounds. So I brought doses up to full strength and I went for it. The whole cycle was just plagued with problems. By this point, I'd already been on too long. But I pushed on foolishly. Now I hit 392 pounds, and at that point I felt I had a good balance of size to condition. I was never going to be lean at this weight, and it was never even a thought, but I thought I had a good size to condition. However, because my mobility was suffering massively with the nerval problems, my cardiovascular ability was none. I was so unfit and I struggled. so close to the end, I pushed on, and that's when my kidneys gave up the ghost. I hit 415 pounds. My kidneys just couldn't cope with the size of me. Now, I've had a long-term kidney problem for a long while. It went undiagnosed for a long while, but when I eventually got to the renal specialist and we looked back over my bloods and works, he said he could see that I'd had issues for many years. It's just the doctors had never done anything about it because the levels were stable. It was only when I got to that size that it pushed everything over the edge. Now, towards the back end of the course, I knew I was looking fatter. I knew I was looking more of a mess. My face had erupted. It was, as those who follow my channel have seen the videos. That came about from stress. The stress of what I was doing, the stress of the heavy metals on my nervous system. It was mainly nerve related. There were some issues going on at home as well with my daughter, and just the general stress that the drugs and everything was playing on me. So it wasn't directly related to steroid use in the sense that it was a side effect from steroid use, but it was the overall stress my body was suffering. As you can see now, it's all cleared up. So that was it. Now, went into the hospital at 415, it may have even been more actually, it might have been near 420, and I came out 355 with visible abs. So I was severely dehydrated at this point. Unfortunately, the diuretics pulled the water out from my blood, then my muscles, before they start to create enough of an imbalance for it to be drawn out from under my skin. And when water retention was at its worst, my balls swelled up as well. But a week in hospital, or 5 days, and I came out and I had abs. Not full abs, but you could see where they were and you could see them. Now, towards the back end of that cycle, I was cutting food back further and further and further because I just thought I was getting fatter and fatter and fatter. I thought my metabolic rate had crashed somehow. In fact, it wasn't, it was water. But keeping the water down at that level is impractical. The number of diuretics I have to run and its effect on my muscularity in the way of my functional muscularity due to dehydration just wasn't practical. So I don't run their diuretics at all. So I still carry quite high levels of water, but I am also carrying quite a bit of fat now as well. So the film, when I watched the film for the first time, I hated it. I still do to a degree. I was very nervous about it being released because it covers some very, very private moments. But more than anything, it is a visual recording of me fucking up, because that's effectively what happened. Now, I set out to find my limits, and I definitely found them, but to watch with the hindsight of being able to see it from a third person perspective, a period of time in your life that you in the time didn't see it for what it really was because you were so focused on the end goal, and then to have to sit there and watch it and think, you fat mess, because that's effectively what I was. It's difficult. It's not an easy thing to do, and then to put that out there publicly to be criticised on it, which I am, and I always will be, and I do accept that. But again, not the easiest thing to do, particularly when you know you haven't made the balls of it. Now, everyone was going, oh, you know, he's a drug addict, he can't leave gear alone, he's got bigorexia this, he's that, he's the other. Well, I left the drugs alone. 6 months now. I find it frustrating. I'm not as strong as I used to be. The size thing hasn't been too much of an issue. Initially it was. I mean, initially I felt tiny. I went into hospital and came out 60 pound bloody lighter. You know, yeah, I lost water subdermal, but I also lost intermuscular water. So I was flat, and I mean ridiculously flat. So that was, yeah, you know, the size thing did bother me a little bit, but nowhere near as much as being weak in the gym has. Now, but the big thing, and the thing that really bothers me that I didn't realize was going to hit, is the lack of direction. For over 3 years of my life, I've been pursuing this goal with intensity, you know, and this has meant massive dedication with diet, eating regimes, drug regimes, training regimes. Don't have that anymore. Yeah, I still eat a clean diet, from not having to consume 10,000 calories a day. I don't have a massively complex drug and injection protocol to adhere to. I don't have a massively complex supplement protocol to adhere to. So I've struggled with a lack of focus, with a lack of direction. That's probably been the hardest thing I've had to cope with. That and knowing that film is out there. But you know, it's getting there. I mean, at the moment, what I have done since is focus on rehab, focus on sorting this muscular imbalance out properly, and for the first time in best part of 18 years, 15 years, my glutes are working more or less properly. My right one's still a bit weak, but it's coming, and now I'm starting to focus primarily on my ab wall. So I can't do a lot of rowing chair sit-ups. I can do crunches all day long because it's mainly upper abs. I've got plenty there. It's lower ab wall which is weak, so it's leg raises and rowing chair sit-ups, and I struggle. So what I have to do is do a little but do it often. So that's currently what I'm doing, and it is improving and it will improve, there's no denying it. And everything is now, and training intensity is probably as intense as it's ever been in my life. The weights aren't the heaviest they've ever been in my life, but the training intensity is off the scale. And as a result, I'm growing. Only little bits, and predominantly in weak areas that were behind. So like my calves are growing and my chest is growing. And the intensity has been off the scale. So I was quite shocked at that. I'm frustrated by the lack of progress, not so much from growth, but from strength. I've gone from benching 5 plates to benching 3 plates. I've gone from shoulder pressing 5 plates to shoulder pressing 3 plates. I'm only squatting 3 plates. I'm only deadlifting 3 plates. But I'm working on those compounds to bring that power up. But I can still leg press heavy, I can still leg extension heavy, I can still do leg curls heavy. I can still do other chest movements heavier, and I can obviously work on isolation movements for my shoulders, but everything is slowly improving. And focus, I think, now has to be on improving functionality and improving health and fitness, and with that will come condition to a degree. So I find myself in a strange situation because I'm holding size far better than I would ever have estimated I would have done, without any real effort from the point of view of food. In fact, I'm probably under calories. I'm only hitting about 4,500 a day, which isn't massive when you consider I'm 360 pounds. Okay, some of that's water, I've got to take that into account. So say 345, 350. But that's, it's a weird come down to suddenly not have this massive pressure of a project in front of you. And that, far more than losing size, has been the biggest issue to deal with. That and the lack of strength. The lack of strength has been frustrating. I'm not the strongest person as it is anyway. I never have been particularly strong. For my size, definitely not. There are guys a lot smaller, a lot lighter than me that can shift the same poundages as I could in my strongest days. And yet, surprisingly, what is increasing is my bicep strength. And that's always been a muscle group that I've struggled for strength. I've always grown, but I've never had a lot of strength with them. But yeah, it's a strange one. I don't like the film. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. And it's nothing to do with production value or its educational value, because I do think it's very good in those levels. It's just uncomfortable watching yourself go through something that you fucked up on and you look such a mess. It's weird. It's not a pleasant experience. And I have been nervous about it being out there in the public forum. But to be fair, in general, most people have been very positive about it. There's been some criticism, which there will always be. But most have been very, very positive about it. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for your support. I don't really know where I'm going to go from here. And I need to tighten up, yeah, and this, that, but I haven't really got anything concrete on what I want to do. So we will see how it goes. I'm going to run a little cycle, just mainly to increase gym strength and to retain some muscle mass when I start this diet. Well, this diet that I've sort of already started. And as I improve my fitness with more and more cardio, and we'll see where we go from there. But yeah, I thought you guys might be a little bit interested in that side of it, the fact that it isn't the loss of size that's been the issue, it's been the lack of direction that's been the issue. Anyway, I'm going to get off because we're sticking on 15 minutes, which is a long one for me, and I'll speak to you guys soon.